You know, Disney movies have been something I grew up watching as a kid. Be it watching Lion King, Aladdin, Hercules, you name it. So what if we took those characters and put them with Square Enix Final Fantasy series into one video game? Well, you get a crossover that I had no idea existed. I'm talking about Kingdom Hearts for the PlayStation 2. Kingdom Hearts was a game I never saw the advertisement for. I first heard and saw the game from my brother who owned it at the time. I was shocked to see Disney characters fighting alongside Final Fantasy characters. At that time, my Final Fantasy exposure was Final Fantasy 7 through 10, so it was a good thing I took notice of Cloud, Squall, and Tidus. Now, as an adult, what do I think of Kingdom Hearts? Well, let's dive into it today. Hey there everyone, Pika here, and time for another installment of PikaViews. Today we're going to be taking a look at the first installment of the Kingdom Hearts series, Kingdom Hearts 1. Or I should just say KH series in general, because usually that's kind of the short stem for it. Anyways, let's begin. Kingdom Hearts 1, the first entry to a series I never thought I wanted as a kid. You tell me I can hang out with Ariel from Little Mermaid and Jack Skellington from Nightmare Before Christmas? Sign me up. The idea of Kingdom Hearts started out with Shinji Hashimoto and Harunobu Sakaguchi talking about Super Mario 64, and that they wanted to create a game that had more freedom of movement similar to 64. They also said the only thing that could rival Mario was of course Disney characters, since Disney movies and characters were always remembered by both adults and kids. Character and monster designer Tetsuya Nomura overheard the talk and wanted to be part of the project. This was Nomura's first time being in a directorial position. Kingdom Hearts is an action RPG, which at the time I've only played a few action RPGs with Threads of Fate, Brave Fencer Musashi, and Dark Cloud. You take the role as a boy named Sora who wields the magic weapon the Keyblade. Sora was designed by Tetsuya Nomura. Before the final concept around Sora was implemented, he was going to have a blade chainsaw and a lion-like tail. I guess to capture the Disney side of him, but the final design was a young boy who has giant shoes and wears a one piece. After the amazing opening Simple and Clean by Utada Hikaru, you are dropped into the tutorial sequence. The game does a good job in teaching you how to play, in terms of movement, fighting, and locking on. After learning the ropes, you get introduced to the first world in the game, Destiny Island, where both Sora and his two friends, Riku and Kairi, lives. Destiny Island is very much a tutorial zone. The game teaches you how to fight enemies that will fight back, and how combat truly feels. At the time, controls for Kingdom Hearts are very simple. You have your attack, items, magic, and as you progress further, summons. Yeah, you get summons in this game, but don't go thinking you'll be summoning Final Fantasy tier summons. No, you just get a very little summons with like Tinkerbell, Genie, or Bambi. You navigate the menu to the left with the D-pad, so you will mostly be taking your hands off the control stick to choose what you want to do with the X button, or circle button. This was very weird to do at first, mainly because the game is asking you to stop moving to pick a command. The combat later on can get a bit fast-paced and a little hard to foresee an incoming attack that will always appear off screen. That's not to say Kingdom Hearts is hard, but it is hard to get used to for your first time. Once you're done with your chores on Destiny Island, you are introduced to both Donald and Goofy. Donald, who is the king's mage, and Goofy, who is his knight. And of course, the king is Mickey. Would it be anyone else? After being introduced to them, you enjoy the second day on the island where you get a chance to race Riku. And this is where the platforming comes into play with Kingdom Hearts. The platforming for Kingdom Hearts is up and down. Most of your jumps can be weird to perform, mainly because there's a bit of input delay before Sora can perform another jump. Once you have that mindset, you won't have too much trouble. That's not to say that's a good thing to learn, but it does get better once Sora learns more movement abilities. That's right, abilities. Since this is an action RPG, you will be leveling up once you obtain enough experience, which is TP. You start to learn new skills, combo modifiers, and also abilities that will let you use limits. When you first boot up Kingdom Hearts, you are given the choice to pick between the sword, shield, and staff, and you give up the one you don't want. This mainly determines how you learn abilities. You pick the sword, you gain more offensive moves, and if you pick the shield, you gain more defensive abilities. As you head into the third day of Tutorial Island, the island is attacked by a mysterious force. With Sora sailing to the island, he encounters the enemies he has seen in his dreams. These are known as the Heartless, being of darkness that only consumes the darkest of hearts. As Sora finds Riku, he starts to spout some random things like the door is open, and then starts to get swallowed by the darkness alongside Sora. Before Sora can be consumed by the darkness, a shining light sparks, giving Sora the item that all con goers will buy, the Kingdom Key, otherwise known as the Keyblade. Going into short detail of the Keyblade, it's mainly the Master Sword from Zelda that can repel evil, and it's also a very blunt weapon. With the Keyblade in hand, we are able to defeat the little Heartless enemies and heading towards the hideout. Sora finds Kairi, who seems out of it and gets blasted through Sora, more of this later. Sora's island is then consumed by the dark void in the sky and he is sent somewhere else. Meanwhile, Donald and Goofy are searching in a town called Traverse Town for the Keyblade Master. Sora wakes up in this town and tries his best to find his friends. He meets up with Final Fantasy VII Sid and then has a fight with Squall from Final Fantasy VIII, who undergoes a name change to Leon because he failed to save his own world. Goofy and Donald encounters Aerith as she explains to them about a man named Ansem who has been experimenting on beings known as the Heartless. The Heartless are enemies in the game that we fight throughout the series. There are two types of Heartless. Artificial beings are the ones with emblems, and the pure-blooded ones are the ones without emblems, but are more powerful. Meanwhile, Leon and Yuffie, who is supposed to be Riku from Final Fantasy X, but they did not want to confuse people, explain to Sora what and why the Keyblade exists. Sora is of course more worried about his island and two friends, Rip, Tidus, Waka, and Sophie, I guess. They are then attacked by some Heartless and Leon tells Sora to go after the leader. Heading off to the 3rd district, Donald and Goofy shows why they will keep dying in every battle. They team up to take on some Heartless and then take on the first major Heartless boss, Guard Armor. After the defeat of Guard Armor, Donald and Goofy explain that they were looking for Sora and want him to come along on their search for the king. And this is the full embark on the journey for Sora, Donald, and Goofy. Now, once you finish Traverse Town, you get introduced to the world map and the gummy ship system. Kingdom Hearts is not like most RPGs. You mostly go from world to world to explore those worlds to obtain items and battle monsters. Your main hub is Traverse Town, but some of the games have their own different hub world. Before you go to your first world, you go through the gummy ship section, which is mostly a watered down version of Star Fox 64. For the first few hours, your ship is super slow, and you can only do so much in these sections. But as you progress through the game, you get more parts for your gummy ship, and you will mostly start zooming across space in no time. You will also get a warp part that allows you to revisit old worlds much faster. The worlds you will be visiting in Kingdom Hearts 1 are Wonderland, Olympus Colosseum, Deep Jungle, which only appears once in this series, Agrabah, Monstro, Halloween Town, Atlantica, and Neverland. The last two worlds are mainly unique worlds that are part of the game's setting and not so much a Disney world, Hollow Bastion, and the final world, End of the World. On your first playthrough, each world will take a bit to complete. But the first world, Wonderland, is a good starter world since it gives the player the ability to explore and find hidden goodies around the area. Olympus Colosseum is more so of a tournament world where you fight wave after wave of many Heartless enemies in the game. Deep Jungle introduced the first minigame that will allow the player to get more items if repeated after completing the world. Agrabah will test your platforming skills and introduce more enemies that will prove a bit more difficult. Monstro, which you will run into throughout your journey through space and gain the first shared ability, High Jump. Atlantica, which will strip you of most of your fighting skills, mainly because your way of exploring is swimming. Halloween Town, where Oogie Manor will be the first vertical boss fight. Neverland, where the story starts to pick up just a little bit and you learn the ability to fly. Now, each world sports a different piece of music. Unlike Final Fantasy, where it has one combat music, Kingdom Hearts has a different battle music for each world. The composer herself, Yoko Shimomura, is to blame. She does an amazing job and has done the soundtrack to Super Mario RPG. Yoko's work is amazing, and you can always tell that her style of music always has a meaning to the battles you're in. During the story, Sora is mainly looking for Riku and Kairi, and also is tasked to seal the keyholes of each world he visits. He finds Riku during the second visit of Traverse Town and also runs into him during Monstro's visit. The last time Sora meets Riku is at Neverland before confronting him at Hollow Bastion. Once Sora makes it to Hollow Bastion, he meets up with Riku as he's fighting Beast. Riku explains to Sora is too weak and does not have the ability to save Kairi. He takes the Keyblade away from him and also takes Donald and Goofy as well. Talk about shocker considering the fact that we fought our way through countless battles and the Keyblade just ups and leaves our possession into Riku's hands. Lucky for us, Beast helps us out to get our friends and Keyblade back. Telling Riku he sucks and that friends are everything, we take our Keyblade back and fight Riku in a real battle. Riku then runs away after a crushing defeat and wonders why he was not able to beat Sora. A mysterious man in a brown cloak who Sora did meet during the second day of Destiny Island approaches Riku and gives him the power to be able to defeat his friend. Once we make it to the top, we meet up with Maleficent, whose plan in the story was to gather all the Disney princesses and use them to unlock a certain door. Riku, having a new getup, reveals that he now has his very own Keyblade, a Keyblade that can open the hearts of others. He uses this power to open Maleficent's heart, and this gives her the ability to transform into her dragon form. Sora takes out the dragon form with no real struggle, and we head to the main chamber. We find the Disney princesses in a deep sleep, and we find Kairi as well. Riku, who is now possessed by the leader of the Heartless, Ansem, who explains to Sora that Kairi's heart rests within him. What does that mean? Well, you know that one part on Destiny Island where Kairi just flew past Sora? It seems during that moment Kairi's heart smacked deep inside Sora and was inside him the whole journey. Now, the hearts in Kingdom Hearts are not physical hearts. They are mostly the soul of one person that can be tainted by darkness and cause them to turn into or be fed by a Heartless. Sometimes it's hard to remember that concept, but once you remember that, the word heart becomes a whole different meaning in Kingdom Hearts' case. Riku Ansem tries to strike down Sora, but not before Kairi calls out to him and Sora manages to block Riku's attack. The fight between Riku and Sora begins, and this is where you get a true one-on-one fight. Nowadays, this fight is a joke, but on your first playthrough, you might die a few times before you can defeat him. With enough leveling and learning, Sora manages to defeat Riku Ansem, and Riku disappears. Sora is unable to seal the keyhole since Kairi's heart is still inside him. So Sora uses the Reckless method and uses the Keyblade to release his heart and allows Kairi's heart to return to her body. Unfortunately, this causes Sora to disappear and plunge into darkness, therefore becoming a Heartless. In this Heartless state, you can jump, and that's really about it. You mainly reach the corridor where you fought Riku the first time and meet up with your friends. The Heartless try to attack both Kairi and Riku, but thanks to Kairi's strong heart and pure light, this causes Sora to return back to normal. The gang returns back to Traverse Town and explains to Leon that the Heartless have gotten stronger and needs to be stopped. This mainly means that every world now has a mix of almost every Heartless in the game. Once you have sealed the keyhole in Hollow Bastion, you head to the final world called the End of the World and confront Ansem. He explains we don't understand the plot of the series and fights us. After a few forms of battle with Ansem, Ansem tries to use one final effort to use Kingdom Hearts, but Sora, being the main character, changed the script and let the light shine on Ansem's face, defeating him once and for all. Kingdom Hearts is still one of my all-time favorites. The combat is simple and the story is not hard to understand, and well, the overall experience is good for first-time players. Nowadays, most people play the other games in the series that have different and better combat styles to them, but if you ever want a casual play style, you can always come back to Kingdom Hearts 1. With 1.5 out now, people can get into the series much better. They have the ability to play Final Mix, which is an added version and an overall updated Kingdom Hearts 1 experience. With added difficulty, 10 new Heartless enemies and items, a new super boss, and one of the best features that is in every Kingdom Hearts game, a skip cutscene feature. The original, you couldn't skip cutscenes, so if you died, you had to rewatch the whole cutscene again. Kingdom Hearts still feels like a fan service game to me. It has so much love put into both the Disney and RPG tropes that it's a magical ride from start to finish. Playing and rewatching all the cutscenes made me really remember why I did get into this series. And if you manage to see all the keyholes, you get a secret ending that did not hint anything at the time. But it was Nomura's way of keeping the players interested. He did not really think this game was going to do so well. So throwing in a secret ending and having an epilogue cutscene at the end was a very bold move. Overall, Kingdom Hearts is still a classic. Can we really call it a classic? Yeah, I think that's right. Kingdom Hearts 1 is still a classic that still holds up with the cast of characters that keeps growing as the series goes forward, and comes with moments that makes you go wow. But I think that's it. The next time you will see me talk about Chain of Memories and Re-Chain of Memories. I have a lot of things to say about that one. I've been Pika, and I'll see you guys next time. Catch y'all later.